everybody. I get a lot of comments from folks and questions asking about the perfect rifle, the perfect cartridge for bear hunting. But it brings up a whole bunch of issues because what's bear hunting? What's bear protection? And with a rifle, does that include a shotgun as well? Wow, we could go a lot of directions with this. And to do that, I brought along my good friend, Joseph Von Benedikt from the Backcountry Podcast, because he's been in bear country too. And between the two of us, I think we can come up with some of the better options. Which cartridge are we going to use? Which gun are we how are we going to balance this? Are we hunting bears or are we just trying to protect ourselves from bears while we're fishing or anything else? So if you were deciding this for yourself, Joseph, where would you start?
Well, the great beauty is if you make a good decision, you can have a rifle that's both good for hunting and good for protection. But that's not always practical. Sometimes you're just hunting deer in bear country, right? You don't want to carry a big bear gun.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to carry a lever action, but then what if you get a shot at 400 yards?
Yeah, oh gosh.
So
why don't we do this then? Let's discuss the ones for bear hunting. Which would be the best rifle for bear hunting? And now are we going to break it down by species?
we'd better, because they're pretty different.
Oh gosh, this is going to take a while, guys. But I think it'll be interesting. It really should be.
Yeah.
Let's start with the most common. I think most of our listeners are probably going to be able to go black bear hunting
Yes.
before anything else. It's affordable. What is a good black bear cartridge?
Well, I think your average deer cartridge will generally do pretty well on a black bear, but there are some exceptions because a black bear, unlike a deer or elk, they actually never stop growing. You can have a 19 or 20-year-old bear, and he's significantly bigger than he was when he was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
You could get black bears as heavy as, 800 pounds?
Yeah, in extreme cases. Now, usually a 400-pound bear is a giant.
Yeah.
But a 200-pound bear is still a pretty good bear. That's like a big deer, right?
Right.
So I think we have to be smart about this and say, although we're all probably likely to shoot 150 to 200-pound bears, every one of us wants to shoot that 400-pound bear. So it behooves us to take a cartridge that's suitable for that. And bears can be hard to kill, and they're hard to find if they run. They don't bleed well.
There you go.
So I like an elk cartridge, personally.
Okay, all right.
For
So we're
black
going to
bears.
fudge it towards the elk side.
Yes.
Now, personally, I have taken black bears with rifles as light as 30-30.
Yeah.
And
As
I have
have I.
a lot of
Yep.
friends who've used 243s.
Mm-hmm.
They're 150-pound, 200-pound black bears. Shoot them behind the shoulder or with a good bullet through the shoulder. I have not found that black bears are particularly massively strong and their bones aren't any really bigger and tougher than whitetail or elk or anything. So I would easily say you could start with the 30-30 at close ranges.
Yeah.
But if you want some reach, 30-06, 308, anything that's going to reach to 300 yards and put your shot on target, going to be just fine.
Sure. And my son William, a year and a half ago, when he was just turned 12, he shot a nice black bear with a 708 at 301 yards. One shot, one kill, did just fine. Now, again, it was like a 150-pound bear. It was not a 400-pound bear. Mm-hmm. And I think few enough of us shoot those 400 class and up bears that, and we just don't get the experience seeing the body mass frequently. But that's cow elk stuff.
Yeah, they're a big animal. But I have not found that the bullets had trouble penetrating a shoulder even. Mm-hmm. Right on the shoulder, it breaks the bone, gets in, it does just fine. But I do think you want to recommend a controlled expansion bullet, right?
I do. Yeah.
I do too. So we're talking any bonded bullet, partition style bullet.
Monometal bullets.
Monometal bullets are excellent. I have really great luck with those.
Yeah.
Use a harder bullet that's going to do some penetration. And I think you're set to go. Where's the top line? A lot of guys are saying, oh, big bears, I'm afraid of them. They're going to eat me up. And it's true. Black bears kill a lot of people. I guess they kill more than grizzlies.
Statistically, black bears kill a lot more people. Now, that's just because there are a lot more areas with black bears and people are more likely to encounter black bears. Right. So the probability for a dangerous encounter goes way up. Yeah. As far as what, the top end is, I firmly subscribe to the belief that you can't kill something too dead, right? So if you want to shoot something like this 500 Nitro Express, be my guest. I mean, if it's just for fun, you certainly don't need it.
Yeah.
But I do think something like a 300 Winchester Magnum or a 45-70, that's a great classic combination.
45-70.
Yep. If you're in big woods country where you rarely shoot past 150 yards, it's real hard to beat that.
Well, the one caveat I would put on that is if you can shoot it.
Yeah.
Too many guys will get a big thing like that, and then they're afraid of it. They recoil, then they miss. I'd rather hit him with a 308 than miss him with a 45-7.
For sure.
Know what you're doing on that one. Don't go overboard on it. But now, that's hunting black bears. Should we go to protection from black bears?
Yeah, and I think it's important with a black bear to note a couple things. Rarely will a black bear attack a human unless they're hungry.
It's a predatory attack.
Biologists will tell you that you can read the body language on a black bear. If you see one and his eyes are bright, his ears are up and forward, even if the fur on his back is kind of ruffled up like a dog or something, he's just posturing and curious more than anything. You're most likely to encounter this with young bears, right? Young males and so forth. If that bear's got its ears pinned back, its eyes narrowed, and it's kind of in a ninja pose, right?
Yeah.
It's acting sneaky. It's in predatory mode, and it's probably not going to quit unless it recognizes that you are not prey. So the best way to do that, obviously, make noise, talk to it.
Yeah.
But if you have to, shoot it, fight it. Yeah.
That's what I always hear about black bears, and I agree. The encounters I've had with them is that they are generally afraid of you. They're curious.
Yeah.
And they think maybe you've got some food if they've ever encountered people before, so they're thinking they're going to get some food for you. But like you said, you just look at their body posture, the way they're behaving, you can pretty much tell. If they're wanting to come after you to eat you, they're going to look like a predator.
Yeah. Now, there is apparently a psychological difference in the way that a black bear reacts to being when you fight back, right? Unlike a grizzly, where it's often a territorial attack. If a black bear is just hungry and you start fighting him back, he's going to say, "This ain't worth the calories, folks."
Yeah, so it's worth fighting back on a black bear.
And even if you just hurt them, a lot of times they're like, "Oh, not cool. I'm just going to leave." Where a grizzly bear
makes them mad.
It can just promote a more aggressive response. So that's why, and in some cases, something like a 9mm personal protection handgun with an expanding bullet, shoot them somewhere, a black bear's going to rethink, right?
All right?
Now, obviously, if he's attacking, he's dedicated, he's serious about it, you're better off to shoot something that will flat out kill him than just hurt him.
Right.
You don't want a wounded bear wandering off and being in the woods sulking, right?
So that brings this 44 Magnum up.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of guys are going to say for bears, I even want an extra protection sidearm with me.
Yeah.
So regardless what rifle I pick, which caliber, what do I want for a cartridge in a handgun?
Well, I would say 10mm and 44 Magnum are the two most popular handgun cartridges for bear defense these days. And both have a good reason. You know, the 44 Magnum is the heaviest revolver cartridge that most folks can master with application and practice.
Recoil.
The 10mm has less recoil, usually double or more the round count on tap. They're easier for folks to shoot. So there's a good argument. We don't have a 10mm cartridge here, but it's smaller than the 44 Magnum. But I just want to throw out here that, like any good combat instructor will tell you, the thing a handgun is best for is fighting your way to your rifle.
Yeah, exactly. Why did you bring a handgun to that? Well, because I couldn't carry a rifle.
Yeah.
Why'd you shoot a 44? Because I couldn't carry a 50.
Yeah.
You
There just
keep it up there.
isn't a handgun cartridge until you get like into the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum that's a legitimate big bear stopper. We'll go over some energy numbers in depth here later, but just to throw this out while we're on the topic, 44 Magnum runs between 750 and 900 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Even a little 708 cartridge with a 150 grain bullet generates
this one
3
right
times
here.
that, 2,300 foot-pounds of energy.
7mm 08, 44 mag, 3 times more energy out of this.
Yeah.
If you've got a good hard bullet in that, in both of them, this is going to penetrate further. It has a higher sectional density.
Yep.
Yeah, this one will make a bigger hole initially, but this thing will expand and penetrate more and deliver more energy for what that's worth.
Sure.
I always say energy is good right up until you get inside and damage the vitals. You can have twice as much energy once you're in there and you've hit the heart and the lungs and torn them up. More energy doesn't really do much.
Right.
So, yeah, that's an important thing to know. I don't mind having a backup 44 or a 10. They get smart, but for the right up front, I'm hunting. I want to be able to take that bear at whatever distance, whether it's 20 yards or 300 across a canyon, which is often what I face in Idaho. So, all right.
Yep, exactly. Now, I think it's important to note too, folks, we're going to go outside and we're going to shoot some cool reactive targets with some of these different cartridges, right up to including some of the big stuff. We've got a 458 Winchester Magnum. We've got 4570.
Yeah.
What do we have on the low end?
Well, I want to take a 708 because that's kind of representative of a 270, 30-06, 308 class of cartridge.
Yeah.
A lot of cartridges that deer hunters would use. So when you're bear hunting, do you feel confident with it?
Yeah.
So we'll show sort of what that does for knocking over some heavy things, this knockdown energy thing. And we want to talk about that. This idea that you're going to knock a bear off his feet or blow him 10 feet backwards with this big stuff. I don't think so. We're going to show what happens when you do that.
Yeah.
But if we can get a bear to model for us, I've got several out on call, but I haven't heard back from any of them. I think they're still sleeping.
Low probability work assignment there.
All right. So black bears, we're going to start with I would say a 243 is okay if the right bullet and you're hunting at close range. Bait guys do that a lot back east, but you really have to place your shots. Get them behind the shoulder. Take out the heart and lungs.
So our friend Tyler Friel in Alaska has shot a literal dump truck load of black bears. I'm saying we could throw all his bears over the past 20 years into a dump truck and it would be overflowing with black bears. Yeah. He's shot 4 or 5 grizzlies with traditional bows, including one with a stone point. Mm-hmm. Some pretty gnarly stuff. He's quite a dude, but he really likes a 100 grain partition and a 243 for black bears over bait.
Yeah.
But even he will tell you, if you're on the ground, you're spotting stalking them, it's not a great choice. Yeah. But if you're on a bait where you can pick your shot and you're within, 30 yards most of the time, because he likes to bow hunt too, it'll do the trick. It's like killing it with an arrow, though. It's not going to really thump it.
Right. The other thing I was going to say about that, on your bear choices, bigger diameter bullets for exit wounds for blood trailing.
Crucial.
I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
So I want great expansion on my bullets, and that's why I would favor some of the larger calibers, regardless of the energy. I want that larger caliber to make that bigger hole, big ragged hole, exit hole. So I like the mono metal bullets, like the Barnes, the Hammers, the cutting edge, Badlands Precisions, all these copper bullets that really open up and tear big holes.
Yeah. Any deep penetrating control expansion bullet, and that doesn't always mean all bonded core bullets, like the old Remington core locked ultra bonded. It used to expand the size of a silver dollar, right? Because they bond that jacket to a soft, pure lead core. They got the best bonding job, inside the core locked ultra bonded. So that core just didn't have much integrity. It pancakes on impact.
I had them break up on me too. A lot of the lesser expensive bonded bullets will do that. Thin jacket, soft lead core. Yeah, they're tied together, but they all break up.
Some of the very best, if you want bonding, I would say a Swift A-frame, because it's both a partition type and bonded, and it's got a good thick jacket.
Yep.
And then the Federal descendants of the trophy bonded bear claw bullet. So we're talking the trophy bonded tip and the terminal ascent. Really good bonding, good thick jackets. And then the rear half of those is all solid. It's like a hybrid.
So even if you lose your lead, you've got good penetration going for that. Okay.
Now we should talk really quick about why that blood trail is so important. So black bears, when you hit them, they have a hide that shifts a lot, like on a hound dog, right? So if you just put a little tiny hole in and no exit hole out, that hide will shift and it blocks your blood coming out. They also have a lot of fat. And the fat globules or chunks will get in your, even an exit hole that's not big.
And then there's the hair itself soaking it up like a big sponge out there.
Right.
So it's hard to get a good blood trail on him.
And then when a bear runs, he doesn't have hooves that put footprints in. Now his claws will sometimes make some marks.
You'll see the duff churned up.
They like to crawl in a hole. When a bear dies, his body just goes
flat like a rug.
And so they can be real hard to see. There's not an antler sticking up. Bears can be hard to recover without a blood trail.
Oh, we did that. We just got just a drop of blood every now and then. This is up in the thick, nasty stuff in Vancouver Island. And I was just kind of looking, and the guide was going drop by drop. The painstaking stuff that I hate to do, but is really important.
It's easier if it's a big splash.
And I was looking at some broken over fern leaves and things, and I got up on a big log from a tree that had fallen down, and I'm on top of it looking like this. And he's coming up behind me with his little blood trail. And he says, Oh, he's coming right up to that log you're on. Did he crawl over it? You see any blood on it? And I looked down and I said, no, but I see him under it.
Yeah.
And there he was. Got up underneath that log. There was lying there dead.
I shot a bear a few years back in Montana. We haven't even touched on 6.5 millimeter cartridges here. And maybe that's telling. Maybe that says something about how how effective
we just don't want people
are.
coming in online and chewing us out for discussing a Creedmoor.
Right. So we won't talk about the Creedmoor. No. But how about the 6.5 Weatherby RPM?
Whoa.
So I shot a bear at 220 yards using a Hornady 143 grain ELDX bolt. It wasn't a big bear, but it was a mature bear. And hit it quartering, and it did exit. That bear was actually bedded. It's the only shot I got. And it jumped up, steep downhill angle, and in about 2 big jumps was gone over the brow of the hill. Mm-hmm. And this old bear hunter that was with us said, I think just before he went out of sight, he started getting all loose. So I think he was about to go down and he'll start rolling, and then we can track him. And I thought, he's going to roll and you're going to track him because he's rolling? Well, I just kept my mouth shut. I was trying to learn and not display my ignorance, right?
Yeah, hey, good move.
We got down there, and sure enough, there's the bear's bed. Not a drop of blood. There's some scratch marks where he peeled out going over the brow and down that mountain. It was a steep mountain. We went about 20 or 30 yards with not a sign of this, not a track, not a speck of blood, nothing.
I know.
Shane, this old bear guide, says, yeah, right about here's where I saw him go loose. So right about down there, we should start seeing blood. Sure enough, this bear somersaulted and then started bouncing. And every time he'd bounce, his bullet holes would blow blood. It was the craziest thing. We followed these blood sprays for 70 more yards down this steep hill through a bunch of brush, and he lodged against the base of a pine tree. If he hadn't lodged there, we'd have picked him up in the bottom of the canyon.
Yeah, that stuff can really roll, especially a floppy bear.
Yep.
I like that. He went floppy. I've never heard that one before, but it
going all
sense.
floppy.
Yeah, he went all floppy. Cool. Yeah, it really pays to know how game reacts to shots. You can see a lot and pay attention. So, okay, I think we've got black bears covered. What do you think?
I think so.
Now, I want to go outside and I want to shoot some of these. And I think we should shoot something really big and heavy and then something fairly light just to show a bit of an idea of what kind of energy is going to be on the target. Most people like to see that, and it gives you a general idea, but it really doesn't tell the whole tale. We'll talk when we're out there about how the bullet's really doing the physical damage to the vital organs that's needed to be done. And then we can also talk about some gun handling too.
Yes.
Because that's an important part of it. But I think what we want to get into are the dangerous bears, the grizzlies and the brown bears. Let's take them both at once. Even though grizzlies can be 400 pounders and brown bears can be 1,400 pounders, I've heard. They're awfully, awfully big. But in general, grizzlies are more aggressive.
Yeah.
But still, it's a big animal. How do you handle a big animal with a cartridge? What are you taking on a bear hunt? And I think we need to break this down into, are you going bear hunting, or are you wanting to be able to protect yourself from a bear while you're sheep or caribou hunting, something else in bear country?
And even if you're just bear hunting, if you're solo, you probably need a rifle that serves as a stopping rifle, because you won't have a professional guide with his 458 lot there backing you up.
Yeah, okay.
And some other things. It's a responsible thing to do to try and kill that bear cleanly the first time you shoot him, because unlike with a black bear, yes, it's scary enough to track a wounded black bear. But if you're tracking a wounded grizzly or brown bear, there's some premium pucker factor right there.
Alder thicket pucker factor. Yeah. Okay. So what's our, let's say, bottom line cartridge? Let's go with a hunting rifle first. I want to go on a grizzly bear hunt in Alaska or a brown bear. I want a little bit heavier bullets for the brown bears just because of the bigger body size, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at reach. You might be in the pucker factor alder bushes and encountering this animal at 30 yards, but you might be seeing him at 300 yards
or 3 yards.
Open tundra country. He might be running away. He might be coming at you. You've got to cover all the waterfront here. So where do we want to start?
If you want something really versatile for those bears and you aren't really comfortable with an honest to goodness big bore, it's super hard to beat a 338. Whether it's a 338 Winchester Magnum, that classic, or something like this 338 Weatherby RPM that I really like just because of the ultra lightweight rifle that it can be built in. This has a nice break on it.
Ooh, that is light.
It's the little 6-lug Mark V action, so it's super sleek, carbon fiber stock, carbon fiber wrapped barrel. This is a honest to goodness sub-minute gun. Mm-hmm. We've shot game with that gun. One shot kills out to 578 yards. It's quick handling in brush because it's got a 20-inch barrel, and it shoots almost identical in terms of bullet weight and velocity as a .338 Winchester Magnum.
But it's not a belted case.
That's correct.
Oh, this is the .338 RPM.
Yes.
That's the one they took the .284 Winchester, rebated. It's got a rebated rim on it, guys.
It does.
And that is a 1/2-inch diameter. Yes, I remember, from the .284. But the .284 is a short action. They just stretched that baby out, the 30-06 length.
Yep.
So this is going to fit in your standard 30-06 length actions. I see what you're doing here. Now, what weight bullet are you shooting? 225?
So this one we're looking at right here is actually 185 grain Barnes triple shot. It's great for deer and elk, but you can load it with a 225 Accubon. 225 grain Barnes tip triple shock would be a great choice for interior grizzlies and so forth.
Sure.
And would make a great combination. You can climb sheep mountain with that rifle there. It'll kill a sheep real well if you have a grizzly tag in your pocket, or if you end up getting raided by a grizzly bear in camp and it's him or you, you're set. You don't need to worry.
Yeah. See, I was thinking about this. I was going to go with a .338 Win Mag, which is just about the same thing. And that is also a short action.
Well, it's a standard length action. Yes, not a true Magnum.
Action. Yes, exactly. So either one of those would work really well. And I think that's a good compromise, .338.
Sure.
You know, the 300s will do just fine. I don't think you need to go to the 35s or the 375s. A lot of guys do.
You can if you want to, and they work great. Here's a 375 H&H just for comparison. You can see it's a bit longer than the 338 RPM. It's going to shoot a heavier bullet, up to 300 grains. If you're hunting brown bears, I encourage considering that cartridge because it's not super hard to shoot. They don't recoil real hard. And the one reason I really like it over something like the 416s, which is a popular backup gun for cartridge for the guides up there, you can still shoot 300, 350 yards with the 375 H&H if you know your stuff. Why is that important? You shouldn't be shooting a grizzly or brown bear at 350 yards your first shot.
Right.
But what if you're a guide and you have a wounded bear going over the ridge 350 yards away? If you can put him down right there, you've just solved a lot of potential issues.
Exactly, yeah. I did take a big brown bear with the 375 H.
Very cool.
Lights out, you know.
Is that your Kamchatka bear?
Yeah, Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. It was a wild adventure.
I bet it was.
I'll tell you about that one sometime. But that particular bear was moving, and it was close enough, and I felt fairly confident. I put it right through the shoulders, not high enough to kill him instantly. That's a good shot on a bear, but a good heart-lung shot.
Sure.
He was lying on the ground, and I must have been close enough to stun him enough that he couldn't get up. So then I just put a second one into the brisket right here, and he was done. So 375 is classic. I mean, that's been used up in Alaska forever for the bear guys. But I think these days, those 338s with the bullets we have now, doing just as well.
Yeah.
And you don't need that full Magnum length action. Now, these will fit in a lot of standard length, 30-06 length action rifles. The model 700 Remington does just fine with the full length ones. But
because in truth, it's got a 3.7-inch magazine. It'll handle it.
The magazine will handle it. These is 3.6 inches is the overall length on those. And that applies to the 416 Remington Magnum.
Yeah. Just a side note that a comment you said prompted, you shot him again because you could. With a bear, the old savvy bear hunters say, shoot the last wiggle out, folks. Don't think, oh, I hit him just right. We'll just let him die. No. Always shoot that bear as long as you can see him and as long as he's still moving.
Yeah, that's good advice. Just common sense is like, you don't know he's dead yet. And if he's not, you might be.
Yep.
So let's just get it finished. Yeah, it's the right thing to do anyway. So what about the 4570? So many people say, I'm going to take that 4570 up to Alaska when I'm hunting, whether it's just for bears or I'm fishing and I want good protection. How does that 4570 compare to the 458?
You know, it's actually a totally different beast. Velocity is considerably less and bullet weight is considerably less.
In the 4570.
In the 4570. You can shoot anything from, this is a 300 grain Barnes triple shock right here. That's a fantastic all-around bullet. It'll go about 32 to 38 inches deep through calibrated ballistic gelatin. which is pretty darn good for a bullet that expands big. That's a terrific black bear bullet. A terrific bullet for interior grizzlies and for initial side shots on a big brown bear. But if you're then wading into the alders to dig that brown bear out, something like this is a hard cast bullet with a big front me-plat, that nose on it, 430 to 540 grains, whatever you and your rifle like best, at high pressures. You know, a load that's built for something strong like this Marlin lever action. This is one of the new Ruger built Marlin 1895s, the guide gun with an 18-inch threaded barrel, laminate stocks, super durable rifle. This one is a real shooter. It shoots that Barnes load into about 1.25 inches at 100 yards.
Yeah.
But if you're potentially going to have either a wounded bear trying to get away, going straight away from you, or worse, coming at you, you need to be able to shoot, well, I like to say it, hill to tea kettle. And for that, you almost don't want an expanding bullet.
Right. You want penetration.
Yeah.
Keep that bullet tight.
So that hard cast bullet with a big flat front nose won't expand, but it'll go from his chin to his tail.
Yep. And the flat point will keep it on line.
Yes.
You get a curved nose on your bullet, guys, and what happens is it hits a little more friction on one side than the other. Could be tight muscle, could be a bone.
They can
it's
skew.
Flex. And you end up with a bullet that doesn't go where it needs to go. These flat points seem to cut right through and keep penetrating.
Yeah. Now, we talked about that Weatherby 338 RPM at length just for a moment, but we should address this type of rifle because it's so popular for guys going into bear country. This is a fantastic elk, moose, and bear gun. It's great for deer if you can handle the 45-70 recoil, and it's not that bad, folks.
But is it appreciated by the bear guides as a backup or a protection gun because it's so fast?
Yes.
Not only is it compact, but it's fast.
And it holds 6 rounds in the magazine. Which is more than any typical bolt action. It's limited in range. You're not going to be shooting bears at 250 yards with it, but you know, there's
you got the quick release set up on your scope so you can go back to your open sights.
That's right. The scope pulls off in just a couple seconds, and then you can go to that fiber optic front sight, ghost ring rear sight, super quick handling, few rounds on your buttstock. That's a terrific all-around bear gun for use to 200 yards.
One point I want to make about the 45-70 is most factory loads, 300 grain bullets, are going to be set up for the old low pressure system.
Mild.
So you're not going to get the kind of energy we're talking about with it. You got to go to one of these or a Ruger number 1 to really get the heavy pressure bullets.
And then with loads that are designed for that. Now, if I'm not mistaken, so I know the Buffalo Bore load, it says right on it, heavy 45-70, not for use in weak action. Right?
Yep.
That Barnes load, I believe they've worked some modern propellant magic where its pressures are inside safe limits for the old rifle, but it's still getting about 1,800 feet per second with a 300 grain bullet.
Nice.
Out of an 18-inch barrel. Pretty good combination.
All right. Now, Joseph, while we're switching rifles here, I want to pull this up because I really think this is a good option. I love bolt action rifles. I love their dependability.
Yeah.
And if I'm hunting caribou or moose or anything else and I want a little more reach and stuff, I don't want a 45-70 lever action. I want something like this. This is a Kimber Adirondack with an 18-inch barrel. Pretty hard on the hearing. I'm going to have some earplugs in, but if a bear suddenly jumps out at me, I've got this in a 708 and I feel confident that I can protect myself from a charging bear with this if I had to, not looking forward to it, by choosing the proper bullet.
Okay.
Hang on to this quick little thing. You might want to run it a couple times and get it on your shoulder and see how quickly it runs. But I am pretty impressed with it.
That's a beautiful little controlled feed action too. That's
nice?
A nice feature and something that you might be using on dangerous game.
So what I have been doing for years with this and most of the sheep rounds, caribou rounds and that sort of thing, I think, now, if I'm going to use something like this and I go bear, what happens if a bear charges me?
Yeah.
I can carry a good, hard, Swift A-frame type bullet or a Barnes X or something like that. That's going to penetrate deep. I could even load a 175 grain bullet on here and keep it up the spout when I'm moving through bear country. And when I see my sheep and I finish my stock, I can put in my sheep load. So I've got a 150 grain Swift Sirocco on that guy. For long range, long reach.
Sure.
I can switch it to this one, and then somebody will say, well, you're not going to hit to the same point of aim by switching your bullet weights, because this is like 154, I believe. Might even be 160. Yeah, it's 160 grain A-frame. No, I'm not worried about that, because this is for the bear that's close. I don't have to be worried about if it's going to be 3 inches off at 100 yards.
Yeah.
It's going to be on the bear, and it's going to have the penetration to reach. So that is a kind of a poor man's way of having a bear load in your sheep rifle, caribou rifle, black bear rifle, whatever.
Yeah.
And the rifle is similar to your little lever action. It's short and quick. I'm not quite as quick, perhaps, as the lever, but you practice with the bolt. You keep it on your shoulder, and you learn how to run that thing.
Yeah.
I know bolt shooters who can be just about as fast as a lever action.
Sure.
So I think that's worth considering.
That's nice too. You know, there's a rifle we don't have here because neither of us have one on hand, but probably the best off-the-shelf solution for a bear gun currently made. If you want all those classic features of controlled feed action, compact handling, durable laminated stock, stainless steel construction, and you know, your choice of several good bear cartridges is the Ruger M77 guide gun. It's got a 20-inch barrel. You can get in 30-06, 300 Winchester Magnum, 338 Winchester Magnum, 375 Ruger, 416 Ruger. There's just an assortment of really good cartridges for use in bear country, wet, soggy bear country, and quick handling, very reliable.
All right, good choice.
Yeah.
Now, one more. Kind of the surprise entry here. 12-gauge shotgun.
Yes.
You hear about this all the time. Guides are carrying a 12-gauge pump. That's what they protect their fishermen from bears with. And is it viable? If you use the right slug, I think it is.
And that's key.
Hey, absolutely. Don't go thinking buckshot. Oh, I'll just spray buckshot out there. I don't even have to aim, right? I'm going to hit him. No, you don't have penetration with buckshot, even if it's double-aught buck.
Yeah.
So you've got to use a slug. But there's another twist.
Got to be the right slug.
Can't be just any slug. These classic all lead, soft lead, Foster style, they just don't do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weight there, but they flatten out like a pancake. You don't get any penetration.
And they're short.
Yeah.
Big frontal diameter, not much length. So they really don't have much in the way of sectional density.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, compared to the sectional density of a classic dangerous game bullet. It's not there.
Oh, look at these bullets right here. So, these are going to penetrate way farther than these. This is going to penetrate farther than that.
Yep.
This one might veer off a little bit because of the curve on its nose, but it's got so much more sectional density. Sectional density in a bullet is a cross-sectional area and weight, by the weight. So if you've got two bullets that weigh the same, they're going to, in the same caliber, they're going to have the same sectional density rating. But the higher the sectional density, the more likely that bullet is to penetrate more deeply given the same construction.
Yes.
Obviously, a frangible bullet's not going to stay in one piece and penetrate well. So it's the long, tough bullets that you want for penetrating deep on bears. Same thing with the shotgun slug. These things are fairly short. Where my thumb is right here, that is about where the base of that slug is. Look at this slug.
And probably like you, I've shot several whitetail deer with 12-gauge slugs and just broadside shots through the lungs. Not a difficult job to penetrate, right? And we caught those bullets against the hide on the backside. That's just hide, ribs, and soft bubbles inside. You're not going through heavy bones, heavy muscle. You're not going very deep. And still those bullets are stopping because they look like this other one. They're huge on the front end. It's called the parachute effect. You know, it dumps all the energy really fast. But it doesn't allow much penetration. That's a bad choice for bear.
Now these are really different because they're not lead at all. These are steel. It's an all steel with a little rim or skirt of nylon or polymer or something around it that touches your bore so you don't get any damage to your bore with that. But that steel bullet weighs like 495 grains, is it? It says it on here somewhere. 495 grain bullet. You're almost up there to a 500 grain bullet on something like this guy.
So, or in that 458 Winchester Magnum.
You don't have the velocity that you would, but pretty good length. I don't know what the sectional density of this would be with that wasp waist in it, but this does not expand at all. It's steel.
It's going to hit hard. It still won't penetrate like a 45 caliber, 500 grain bullet.
It's not going that fast. This is a shotgun. What are you moving at? 1,200 feet per second?
And you've already got a lot of frontal diameter.
But for a bear that's coming and you've got a pump shotgun, you're going to put some in there. Something to consider. Don't go with the shotgun slugs and use those soft slugs, though. I think you really need to have something hard. All right.
Do you want to talk about energy and sectional density at all?
We brought up sectional density. I think we should describe it a little bit and why it matters. What are we getting for a sectional density? You say, well, how do you do the numbers? What do they mean?
Well, it's an equation that you calculate using bore diameter and bullet weight. That's all that applies in sectional density. Like you mentioned, it's crucial to choose light construction bullets. If you go a partition to a partition, you're going to get useful information. But if you compare a nozzle partition to a Hornady SST, it's out the window because the construction, the performance on impact is so different. But one key thing that dangerous game hunters for decades and decades have believed in is a minimum of 0.300 is necessary for use on dangerous game. Now we're talking Cape buffalo, hippos, coastal brown bears, and so forth, right?
0.300 is the sectional density rating of that bullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we can go down through some popular bullet diameters and weights and look at those numbers. But let's start with a classic example. That 375 H&H with a 300 grain bullet has a sectional density of 0.305. So it's right there on that on the mark, right? That's
300 grain bullet
killer.
Okay. Does it matter if it's a flat nose bullet, a round nose bullet, or a spire point?
Sectional density does not take any of that into account.
The shape doesn't matter, just the diameter and the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then if we go, let's say just for kicks, we look at a 30-06 180 grain bullet because everybody's familiar with that, right? Your sectional density on that is 0.271. Still pretty good. It's fine for elk and so forth. But if you're talking about the penetration you need for a big coastal brown bear, probably not quite there. That's why so many guys using a 30-06 go to a 200 or 220 grain 30 caliber bullet.
So right here, Joseph, I'm looking at 180 grain. That's the one that you said is SD of 271.
Yeah.
That's a 308. It's a Swift A-frame. This one has a higher sectional density, but it's a burger.
Yeah.
It's what you're saying you shouldn't use because of the different materials and construction. This is a fine bullet for long range hit on an animal, but at closer range. But it's got a thin jacket and a soft lead core. It's not bonded, it doesn't have a partition or anything, so it's going to likely break up.
They're designed to fragment after they get inside the vital cavity.
So even though you've got a higher SD with this bullet, you would do better, get better penetration out of this bullet. Okay.
So let's just look at some other numbers right down the line kind of quickly. 160 grain bullet in your 708 has a sectional density of 0.286. You're getting close to that
0.286. That's pretty good.
A 338 with a 225 grain bullet. Say you were to pick a Barnes tip triple shock, sectional density is 0.281. Combined with the monometal construction of that bullet, probably just fine for big bears. We talked about the 375 H&H, a 9.3 by 62. Well, any 9.3.
That's this one right
with the classic 286 grain heavy bullet in that is going to have a sectional density of 305, just like the 375.
That's why they say that's such a popular buffalo round over in Africa.
Yeah.
Even though it's not a 375, it got grandfathered in because it was so successful. They'd used it for so many years.
Just 3 months ago, I shot a big bull facing straight on Cape buffalo with 286 grain Barnes triple shock out of my 100-year-old 9.3 by 62 Mauser.
100-year-old, almost as old as me.
Almost. Killed him dead with one shot. Beautiful. Yep. But then let's get into the really good stuff. So we've got the 416 Rem Mag, 416 Ruger, and the 458 Winchester Magnum. So the 416s with 400 grain bullet have a sectional density of 0.330.
330, not 303.
330.
Wow.
And the king of them all is that 500 grain bullet in a 458 diameter cartridge, whether it's a 458 lot or 458 Win Mag like this, 458 Nitro Express. The sectional density on that is 0.341.
Now, these are not numbers that most of us hear every day. And we don't think about it. Some guys will recognize sectional density and say, you need the bigger, longer bullet for sectional density. But we don't relate it to those numbers. So once again, the 0.300 is sort of the starting point for really good penetration.
The benchmark.
Yep. You want to get a little lower than that, you'll be okay. You don't want to go too much lower than that. And 0.25 is probably too low. And then moving up the scale, 3, 4 is way high.
Real high.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of sums it up. And again, it tells me that if I'm using a 30-06 with a 220 grain bullet, I'm not only getting good energy in that bullet and good momentum. If I've got the right construction in that bullet, I also have high sectional density in that bullet. So that could outperform some 338 bullets that don't have the equal sectional density.
That's right. As far as penetration goes.
Yeah.
Yep. Now that leads us to back to a discussion of knockdown power, which there really is no such thing. But I think we should go outside and see what visual effect this energy has on some targets of opportunity. Maybe some that we create.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to create the targets of opportunity because I still haven't heard back from any of those bears that I called on this deal. They're not going to show up.
They're not good sports,
You can't get help these days.
Do you think we'll be able to see the difference in the numbers we see on paper?
Yeah, and I want to shoot some mass. I'm going to get some firewood I've got cut, and each piece is obviously not the same, but it'll give you the general weight of the thing.
Sure.
And you're going to see how much one gets blown back versus the other. I think we're going to be surprised at what we don't see happen with some of this stuff.
I shot a 12-inch steel target the other day with a new 35 Whalen. Such a fun cartridge. A lot like a 9.3 by 62. This is a heavy steel plate, and at 100 yards, the 6.5 Creedmoors I see people shooting it with all day long, and goes ding and swings a few inches. I shot it with my 35 Whalen and a 250 grain partition. It went whop and hooked up around the top of the target stand.
Stingled on
it's like top. That is a visual difference.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And it's time for our tip of the week, which is don't be afraid of bears, but respect them. Doesn't matter if it's a brown bear, a polar bear, a grizzly bear, or a black bear. They are big, tough animals and they can do you damage. Try to make noise when you're out in the woods, not sneaking up on animals, just hiking or fishing or anything. Make a little bit of noise when you're moving through bear areas so they know you're coming and you don't surprise them. And if you see a bear charging you, try to make yourself big before he gets there. Carry a handgun for protection, a rifle protection, but if you can avoid trouble in the first place, that's the biggest deal. So if you're in the West hunting, especially elk, these bears have learned that the sound of a gunshot is like the sound of a dinner bell, and they will come running to find that free food. So one guy ought to stay guard while the other one's working on the animal. Just be smart, be cautious, be bear smart.
Ron, I think we got too long-winded. We're having too much fun and we talk too much.
No, imagine that. You and me talking too much?
Well, it is our special talent.
I don't know. We might break this up into 2 shows, folks. So either you're going to sit through a 2-hour show or you're going to get a couple hour shows. We don't know.
But remember, hunt honest and shoot straight.